I'm David V. Stevens, your virtual host, and this is our season finale of Season 2. What an episode we have for you. Today, I sit down with none other than Don, entrepreneur extraordinaire and author of the new book, The Quest, The Definitive Guide to Finding Belonging. In this conversation, we cover the journey of founding and scaling Social Tables to a $100 million acquisition, how fostering belonging and wellness drives team performance and innovation, insights on the future of events, retreats, and meaningful connections in a remote world. Packed with inspiration and actionable insights, this episode will transform the way you think about connection and wellness in work and life. Let's get started.
Aloha. Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Return on Wellness. This is Season 2, Episode 12, the last one of this season. I am here today with Dan Berger, actually my first potential author, at least the first one that showed up with a book. He has a new book called The Quest, The Definitive Guide to Finding Belonging. So we're going to dig into that today. It should be a great episode. Don, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're going to jump in and go into introductions and just talk a little bit about who you are. There probably are some people who don't know who you are. So for those people, let's give them a little background on you so that it helps contextualize the rest of the conversation. Most people might know you as the founder and the person who sold Social Tables to that little tiny startup Cvent.
That's right.
Were you in events before that? Like, I'm curious if you can touch on a little bit, like, how did this Social Tables thing even start?
Sure. So I think everybody's in events. It's just not in our title.
Oh, that's some knowledge already out the gate.
Well, everybody's in sales too, right?
Always.
I actually once read this study that said 7 out of 10 people have some sort of sales function in their job. And the same thing is for events. You know, there's the accidental planner and the professional planner. But anyway, so I was in events previously, but not directly. I worked for a congressman and staffed him on all his events in the district. And then I ran an association that had about 20 programs a month, and about 15,000 members.
Did you say they had 20 events a month?
20. Let's edit that. I meant 20 events a year.
20 events a year. Okay. All right. No, fair enough.
Yeah.
We're going to leave
First
that.
I started with a week, and then I went a month. That's actually a year.
20 events a day.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said you worked for a Congress member. With David Adler was on earlier in the season, and we talked about soft power and actually how really smartly you can control the outcome of an event with assigned seating and the influence you can have by seating different people next to each other. That's a whole nother topic, but he highlighted that because he worked in that area as well. Did you go from the association to starting Social Tables?
No, there was a break in between where I went to grad school and tried management consulting for 6 months and, wasn't into it. Played hooky most of the time I was there. I called it my first angel investor. But I was always a web developer, so I kind of self-taught technologist, something I've always loved. I think I'm kind of a little rare in that I'm a solo founder. I had what I call late co-founders, but I was a solo founder who kind of wore both the CTO and CEO hat, which I think was a kind of unique advantage for me.
Yeah, well, especially being a tech company, because CTOs / CIOs are usually not the, let's say, leadership in the traditional sense of like, I've worked with many CEOs who are CEOs, and their CIOs or CTOs are a very different personality.
That's right. Yeah, more internal.
Yeah. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about why or what triggered you to start it? Because now when we think about it, we're like, oh yeah, well, duh, that should have existed forever. But was there something that happened that kind of brought you to starting Social Tables?
So first of all, I think it's always existed just in different form factors. There was obviously,
You mean fax machines and pencils?
Spreadsheets and all that. But there was a company called Meeting Matrix, and Meeting Matrix was on-premise software. So it wasn't in the cloud. It wasn't collaborative. It wasn't very user-friendly. And when I started the company, I had no idea this category or subcategory existed. What prompted me to start it was in 2008, I was going to a friend's wedding, my first kind of wedding in America because I'm an immigrant. And, early on in my life, I had a lot of social anxiety, and I was like, well, crap, I don't know where I'm going to sit, and like I'm super nervous, and where do I meet the cute girls, and like how do I network, and whatever else comes with the burden of attending an assigned seating event. And I thought, well, what if there was a way to connect the seating chart to our social profiles, hence social tables.
Oh,
So the initial version was essentially a social seating chart that was published to the guests.
didn't some of the airlines try to do that?
There was a way to communicate with different seats, which I think quickly fell off.
Well, that's because probably it got real creepy real fast. But I would have swore that I heard something about, it was one of the, I think it was like, I know Virgin did the seat to seat thing, but I thought there was also at some point, one of the airlines was actually enabled you to upload your LinkedIn profile if you wanted to, so that you could sit next to like-minded people so that you could make more out of the flight.
It makes sense. There's a lot of business travel, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
They've tried to do that in lounges too, and I know Delta was doing that.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line between kind of like wanting to network and wanting to be left alone, because so much of the networking that happens is such a time suck. A lot of just networking is just a total waste of time. It's like playing the lotto every time. It's like,
Yeah.
let's be frank, is this person going to add value or not? And most of the time, the chances are they won't.
Right.
So, of course, there are all these attempts at making networking more efficient.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that I didn't realize that was the original intention of social tables.
Yeah.
I thought it was really just about not having to go back and forth a gajillion times on iterations of a floor plan.
Yeah, I still remember our first customer, because at the time we were B2C software. So we were just serving not even planners or not even hotels. We were serving essentially not even wedding planners, essentially brides. And most of the time with seating charts, the parents are involved and other people are involved. Catering needs to know where special meals go. You have to know where there's an empty seat of a no-show. So there's a lot of dynamic needs within the seating chart. But also, I remember my first client, Danica, she was our first client on the wedding seating chart.
And was there just a natural progression and evolution that started happening that took you from the social tables to the formal meetings and event space?
Yeah, my first paycheck from Curly & Company in Washington, D.C. for $400. They were exceptionally helpful in providing feedback on the software. And essentially, I remember the day like it was yesterday. Trevor Lynn, my partner and chief marketing officer, swiveled around on his office chair in our incubator and was like, this B2C shit is dumb. We got to go B2B. And then we realized hotels were going to be our bread and butter. And when I sold, we had 6,000 customers, 2/3 hotels, 1/3 planners, and we had $20 million in recurring revenue.
What was it like trying to get, because you had to get things from the hotels. Was this even a tough sell, or did when you explain it to people, they're like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. That would save us a ton of time.
Well, I like to say that when it comes to sales, there's kind of 3 levels. The first level is products that save you time. The second level is products that make you money. And the third level is products that prevent a lawsuit. And Social Table's initial pitch was, we'll save you time. And then we're like, wait, this is a sales tool. So we'll help you make money, because you can actually visualize the floor plan in 2D and 3D. You can put it on your website. You can replace the old capacity charts that were PDF downloads. And then we realized, wait, this actually can prevent lawsuits, because we can directly share this with fire marshals and to measure automatically distance to exits and capacities and so on and so forth. So over time, it became a sale to multiple functions within the venue or hotel. But generally speaking, also given our price point, which was like $3,000 to $6,000 a year, it wasn't expensive.
Yeah.
So
you weren't even in like the capital expense line.
Well, we could capitalize some of it, because the setup fees were about converting old floor plans into our software. So that could have been capitalized. But yeah, I mean, it's operating expenses. That's totally negligible.
Yeah. Like someone could just put that on a P card instead of having to go through CapEx and all that.
Yeah, we had a crazy short sales cycle, like under 30 days.
Okay. And so the rumor I heard is that you sold Social Tables to Cvent for $100 million.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
When we sold, we were about 19 and change in recurring revenue, which is a little over 5x, which at the time for a SaaS business is kind of like par for the course.
Yeah. And what year was that happened?
That was in 2018. And here I'll reveal a secret that nobody knows on the show. When I left in Q4 of 2019, I was under contract to buy meetup.com.
Oh.
Yeah, the famous internet brand. And that deal fell apart during diligence it was an asset owned by WeWork, and they were divesting all their kind of unrelated assets to their core business. And we're going to buy it, me and my group of investors, and we didn't due to financials and performance. And then COVID happened. So kind of dodged a bullet.
Yeah. And or you could have gotten it for even less.
By the time diligence was over and we passed, the entire executive team hated me.
Oh,
So probably not.
Okay, yeah, okay, fair enough. So there was a big C-Vent acquisition earlier this year. This is not on the list of things that we talking about. So I'm just curious. This is all speculative. Yeah, I was going to ask, how long do all of us have to wait until we find out how much they got bought for?
I mean, I know the number.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the number. Are you allowed to say the number?
I don't think I should say it.
Okay, fair enough. It will come out at some point, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you could just do the math, I think they were like around 30 million ARR. So, kind of a different multiple than social tables, but, do some multiplications. You can kind of figure out the ballpark.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I thank you for not saying the number, but helping us with being a math teacher.
Yeah, by the way, the 30 million is a rumor. Who knows if it's true?
True. Yeah. Well, I saw Reggie at a Skift event and I said, please don't part out Splash. Because I was a big Splash fan for a long time. I've known Ben for a number of years.
Do you know when it was called One Clipboard?
I did not. Did you?
It was initially called One Clipboard, yeah.
Well, I think in the event tech space, to me, there's kind of two categories of event tech. There's tech that a planner says, oh, this is broken in our ecosystem. We need to fix this. And then there's tech that tech comes up with, oh, we should go sell this to events people. And the thing I loved about Splash is it worked and operated like tech that an event person came up with.
Well, Ben had a history of planning parties.
Yeah.
And it was definitely splashy.
Yeah.
Right? It was splashy websites and kind of like responsive and mobile friendly. And at the time, in the early 10s, a decade and a half ago, that was non-existent.
Yeah.
Don't forget, C-Vent is, 25 years old.
Right. Well, and you had things like Eventbrite, which was okay, but one of the things a lot of people forget about with Eventbrite is that they're advertising your events to your competitors because they're so social first.
I mean, there was a lawsuit of one of the companies, I forget who, scraping the other's data, and it was settled. It's a public record. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, Eventbrite really is probably the best company that got discovery right.
Because that's what they're built off of.
Yeah, the problem is that a lot of the people using the search features were a bunch of weirdos. So if you published an event on Eventbrite, you got like people who wanted free food, like borderline homeless people. So it was just not the right, like.
It was not a good corporate fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eventbrite, definitely pioneer, for some reason lost its mojo. Obviously they had some CEO issues. It was a husband and wife team. I always thought highly of them. But I will say that event registration, which we seem to be talking about, is certainly a fragmented market.
Yeah. Oh, no, everyone does all the things. Everyone's an all-in-one.
Of course. Everyone's an AIO. But the thing about it is that reg is very different for every event. It's
really is.
Impossible. That'd be like me making an outfit for everybody in the world. Like, not everybody's going to wear the same outfit, cultural reasons, fashion, age, whatever. Every event is different. Even if you have the same event year after year, it's going to be different. So like, about sports, and registering for a race is different than like registering for a conference versus registering for a dinner. So,
right. Yeah.
So it's exceptionally difficult to do everything. And I'm really curious to see what AI does and how that helps kind of address, because I've envisioned kind of like build a reg site for blank and it really kind of populating a very custom reg site.
Yeah, that will be interesting and hopefully time-saving in the future.
Because right now, there's big teams just building websites on the back end for a lot of these major companies.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
I was a Splash customer for a while, right after I met Ben, actually. I was an internal corporate planner, and I brought it in, and it was such a time saver because prior to that, I was a big Eventbrite user because I worked at an association. Mm-hmm. And so being able to show and pass through the credit card processing costs was a big deal. Because when I joined, I worked for a chamber of commerce. They had a form on the website, register for this event, put in your credit card info. And then it would come in as an email. And the office manager would print it out and then walk over to the credit card. It just showed up in Outlook. And then she would print it out, walk over to the credit card machine, manually punch it in.
Absolutely wild.
And they're like, we're not making any money on these events, let alone then. And then she'd take the piece of paper and put it through the shredder. And I was like, this is wild. And so Eventbrite let us pass through the credit card costs, which was really nice. But then when I came across Splash, I was a big fan of it because it was a planner's friend. It was so easy to make on the fly. And now we have Posh and Luma and all these other ones. I don't know how we ended up down this rabbit hole.
Well, we're just talking event tech.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious what that acquisition was like. Did you ever even think when you started that business that you'd be dealing with a number that big in your future?
I mean, there was no other number. So basically what happened was, let me back up. I raised about $27 million across 4 rounds, angel, seed, A, B.
Okay.
And at the time, every round we raised was a record-setting number, way higher than the mean at the time. So our A was 8, our B was 13. These were huge numbers. Nowadays, you have like $30 million A rounds.
Databricks just raised $11 billion.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Nonsensical. Yeah. So anyway, so I raised all this money, and specifically Bessemer, which is the number 1 SaaS investor in the world, was not that happy with our growth rate. So our plan at Social Tables was to move from floor plans into a marketplace whereby we have 3 billion square feet of meeting space. How do we make that available and democratize it to meeting planners so they can make more informed decisions when booking venues? So like, oh, wow, this view is sick. This setup is sick. This location is sick. Let me book this, as opposed to whoever pays the most for advertising.
Got it.
So the vision was marketplace. And in fact, at the time, we sold our marketplace kind of software to several major hotel brands, and it was powering their meeting search.
Interesting.
So, and one of those customers was IHG. So anyway, that was the vision. And Bessemer said, well, we didn't sign up for a marketplace when we invested. We signed up for SaaS, and SaaS has growth expectations. When you have a software company, the growth expectations are huge. And what I want to do is create a SaaS-enabled marketplace. And what that means is the SaaS is a means to a marketplace ends. So you give away the software, and then people become essentially part of the marketplace, and it's a flywheel.
Yeah.
And that didn't fly with some board members. So there was even a movement to remove me as CEO.
That sounds like fun.
I was saved by my independent board member, Fabio Rosati, shout out, who's just an incredible man. Anyway, so we became profitable. When I sold the business, we had several $1 million on the balance sheet. So we weren't spending money fast. We weren't, we're becoming break even. But the board at that time was like, hey, bring in a banker on retainer so that they can give market updates every quarter, which is a piece of advice I give entrepreneurs all the time. Like, have a banker on the ready to just tell you what's happening in the market so that when you are eventually selling your business, you can retain this banker. That's kind of why they do it. So our banker, Larry Phillips, incredible man out of Moreland Partners, now part of Stifel, was our banker, and he was providing updates. And I said, Larry, don't waste my time with anything under 100 million. So he did just that. I was out. I was actually on a date. It was a Friday night, and it was like 6 p.m. I forgot where I was, 7 p.m. And I get a phone call from Larry. He's like, Don, how does $100 million sound? I said, let's fucking go. And we closed in 45 days, which is record time for such a transaction.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it without an unfucking believable team.
Yeah. Well, I remember meeting a couple people with Social Tables when I worked in a different space. I was a corporate planner, and everyone I met who was there was incredible. So was it headquartered here where we are?
No, it was not in Idaho. It was in Washington, D.C.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And did you used to live in D.C.?
I did for a decade. Yeah.
When did you come to Idaho?
In 2020.
Okay. When in 2020?
Right during COVID, July.
Okay. Your COVID move.
Yeah, it was a COVID move. But unlike most people in Idaho, I came from the east, not the west.
Right. Fair enough. We're going to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about what things you were doing at Social Tables in regards to wellness, except I feel like when you were there in 2018, 2017, et cetera, people weren't really calling it wellness at the time. But I know something that was important to you was taking care of your people.
Oh, dude, we did wellness. I mean, we had a spinning studio in the office.
Okay.
We had 4 bikes in a blacked out room with mirrors all around, with a TV and with a giant Sonos speaker.
Did you bring in an instructor?
No, we had actually an instructor on staff. Rayla Stable, who was my recruiter, was also a spinning instructor.
I taught for 8 years.
Sick.
Yeah.
So we also did a weekly Soul Cycle where we went out and did it as a team. In fact, I took the board of directors to Soul Cycle before the board meeting to try anything. I tried anything to calm those fuckers down.
You thought you'd wear them out?
I love them.
Thought you'd wear them out before the meeting?
I'm grateful even for the jerks. And then we had a gym in the building.
Okay.
We had healthy snacks as options before snacks were a thing, except for outside, like Google. We had a 30,000 square foot office. So to get from point A to point B, you walked a lot.
You got a lot of steps in. Yeah.
We had a running club.
Oh, well, because you were in DC. Like,
Yep.
DC is
DC
such
is
a
actually
running
the
town.
Well, at one point, I think it was 2016, 2017, it was ranked the number one fittest city in the country.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
In 2018, I think it was Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay. Yeah.
Which does not seem like it would be a place. But anyways, all right. So you were doing, it was a lot of, and not that I'm dismissing this by any means, but it sounded like it was a lot of fitness focused. Let's call it wellness.
Yeah. I mean, the average employee age was 27. So a lot of folks took mental health days. But I would say, it's a great point. And actually, when you shared some of these topics with me, I was thinking about it. Our wellness went beyond that.
Okay.
And it came in the form of belonging
Okay.
and mental health and giving employees a sense of identity as part of the culture that we had. And I would say that went a really long way because so many people had friendships at the office. We saw 4 people get married out of meeting there.
Wow.
So people continue to work to this day. Just the other day, Trevor, my co-founder, told me that he hired Megan from his team at his new company.
Huh.
So, I mean, Adobe's got a 5-person, something like that, social tables team. So we took wellness pretty seriously across the board.
Yeah, I think that belonging and feeling like you're a part of a community is something that's really important. There was Strava put out a study this year that Anka sent to me, and 60 some odd % of Gen Z made new friends at group fitness classes.
I talk about this in my book, actually. Part of your belonging, part of what influences your belonging is your circumstances. And one of those circumstances is your socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
And when people are not well off socioeconomically, they actually get shut out of opportunities to belong because they may not be able to afford school. They may not be able to go to a coffee shop regularly. They may not be able to join a club. They may not be able to go to a conference. They may not be able to go to a fitness class, and so on and so forth. So not making ends meet has an influence on your belonging.
Yeah, so I think that's why what you were doing by providing spaces for people to participate in that, regardless of where they were on the payroll, probably really helped foster that sense of belonging because the barriers were brought down to participate and be with everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, a belonging culture is what I think I'm pretty good at doing. I would say, however, that I took it too far.
What do you mean by that?
I pushed a lot of people to belong. I judged people.
Like, were you a cult leader at some
A little
point?
bit, yeah.
Okay, all right.
If you didn't go to a happy hour, I'd kind of like put you on my blacklist, not literally.
Just once, or like if you
if
never went?
If you didn't show up, I judged pretty hard. And I didn't take into consideration the outside personal belonging people might have, which is what I really talk about in my book, which is like, before you have professional belonging, you have to have personal belonging. And I was trying to shove professional belonging down people's throats, and I didn't realize that one builds off of the other.
Yeah.
And that was something I could have done better.
Okay. Well, that's a great point to bring up. Now, the intention of this podcast, we call it Return on Wellness because the whole point is the business justification of integrating wellness into meetings, events, et cetera, but into business at large. I would like to dig into why you did all those things, not why you bullied people about not going to happy hours. I'm just kidding, but only kind of. But why you chose to put a spin room in there, why you took your board to SoulCycle, why were you trying to do these things? Because I think that's where it gets really important, especially from a C-suite leadership, because I think the corporate wellness industry is worth something like 1.8 billion or something like that, and it just keeps growing, but it's starting to lose steam because it's all been done very superficially without any intention. So can you talk to what your motivation was for it and what kind of impact you saw it have on the business?
Sure. So first of all, I agree with you. Wellness is becoming inauthentic. It's hard to take organizations seriously when they throw empty slogans at their employees, such as "you belong here," or "we belong," and all this other crap.
We're like a family.
Yeah, it's just bullshit. And employees are smarter than that. They see through it. You mean to tell me that Sally at accounting, who doesn't show up half the time, belongs here? No, we're a high-performance culture. She doesn't belong here.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, I mean, the real reason why I did this stuff is to make sure people spend time with their colleagues and spend more time at work, if I'm being honest.
Fair enough.
And again, I've learned from that. I also like to think about the wheel of life, which is everybody Googles, they'll see it's basically a bunch of spokes, and each spoke is a different thing. And in order for the wheel to turn properly, each one of those spokes has to be aligned with the circumference of the wheel. And if each one of them is not aligned and your wellness, your physical health is high, but your romantic relationship is low, then it's not going to spin properly.
It's lopsided.
Exactly. So you need a holistic approach. And I think companies, when we spend 40 plus hours a week with our employers, we have an expectation that they provide us these things now. But I think of the workplace as a platform, not so much as like the end all be all. It's a platform for friendships. It's a platform for relationships. It's a platform for impact. It's a platform for wellness.
It's an opportunity.
Yes.
I'm curious if you saw any correlation between the people that took advantage of the fitness and wellness offerings and the quality or level of output of their work.
My colleague Erin O'Boyle comes to mind. She's now at Pendo, along with Cooper, who's a former product manager, who's also at Pendo. Again, social tables, or we call them tablers, stick together. So Erin O'Boyle and I would go to spin class all the time, and she was the number one sales rep we had. So I wouldn't say it's because, she went spinning, but I'd say it's because she's got to spend time with me. And truly, I'm not sounding like an arrogant jerk. It's like, if you spend time with the CEO, you get FaceTime with the CEO, you're more likely to ask for them to help close a deal. You're more likely to learn about what's going on in the company and be able to share that. You're more likely to understand the messaging of the company and be able to connect that with your prospects. So anything that increases the positive collisions with colleagues is really important.
Yeah.
And that's how I think about it. So it's not like, oh, wow, you're like burning the most calories, so you're the highest performer. It's like, hey, you're spending more time together in an activity that brings you joy or makes you feel good. And that has the positive impact.
Yeah, I think there's something also about leveling the playing field, right? At Olympian Meeting, we've had a number of people who is, let's say, a individual contributor and there's an executive, and they're both in the same body weight boot camp. And the individual contributor is just whooping the executive's butt at whatever the activity is in any given moment. And they start to see each other differently because all of a sudden you think in the workplace and you see someone and you're like, oh, this person's a big deal and blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, I'm way better at something than they are. I guess maybe they're a human after all. And then that lowers that barrier of approachability because you've been in a shared activity. You see that person as a person, and now you can have a conversation. So you and Erin probably had all kinds of conversations that were just kind of in passing, nonchalant, casual things that was everything she needed to arm her to be better at her job.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I would say there's also a line. There are boundaries.
Agreed.
And the boundaries are, I don't think it's fair to have an activity where I ask colleagues to wear a bathing suit.
That's pretty much across the board. Yes.
Yeah. No, it happens, right? Like there are beach incentive trips, or those things have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah.
About different employees and how they want to show up. The same is true like for the sauna and cold plunge movement, So I'm building a chain. My new venture is a chain of retreat centers, and we have hydrotherapy amenities on site. And I'm aware of the fact that not all teams are going to want to get exposed parts of their body to colleagues.
Right.
So, that example you gave of like the executive and the sales rep, it's like, on one hand, it's cool that there's a level playing field and we share humanity. On the other hand, we don't want to embarrass anybody.
Yeah. I think if you're an elite at something and you just invite people to come perform at your elite level, you're just gaslighting everyone at that point and you're showing off and you're like, oh, you all suck. Look at how good I am at this. You're not doing that for the reason that I was implying. I think there's a difference there when you offer something, a neutral activity where anybody can participate.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like there's a cherry blossom run in DC that we did, things like that, like 5Ks, anything like that is cool.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. So Given what your next venture is, I feel like you've had a pretty good relationship with wellness throughout your life. So I'm just kind of curious, was there a flashpoint that got you to really think about your own well-being? Or is it something that's just always been a part of your life?
So I hate working out. It fucking sucks. I don't enjoy being in pain.
You're a founder. I call bullshit.
No, I swear to God. I run 12 miles a week, which is kind of nothing, across 3 times. I do Krav Maga twice a week, and then I have a weights day. And every minute of each one of those things, I don't like doing.
Okay.
Like, I don't like my calves hurting. I don't like my ankles hurting. I don't like to be out of breath. It's uncomfortable. So people like you enjoy it. I don't understand. So
then why do you do it?
Okay, now there you go. So, the first thing is I don't enjoy it. But I think it's a necessity. Like, I just had my daughter. She was born 6 weeks ago, and I'm 43.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Like, I'm going to fucking be geriatric when she's like 18, So.
My dad was 58 when I was born, so you won't be that geriatric.
Bless. Is he still with us?
No, he is not. He would be going on 103 if he was still with us. So, no.
Sorry for your
unfortunately,
loss.
it's okay.
So I started working out seriously when I had my first panic attack in 2014. I remember it was like yesterday. I talked about Bessemer, and I got a call from the partner, and I just got super nervous, and I had a panic attack when I saw his name on my phone. And my colleague, Sarah Gessie, at the time goes, "Oh, you're having a panic attack. Sit down and breathe." And I was like, "Oh, crap." So I went to a cardiologist because I was having heart palpitations. I had IBS later on, so I'd go.
Gastroenterologist?
You have that one. And I realized, well, I have an anxiety disorder. I have general anxiety disorder. And so I started seeing a psychiatrist, got on Lexapro, which is anxiety SSRI. But I also started seeing a trainer, Julio Garcia, shout out at the local Crunch in DC. And he was just awesome. And I would see him in the mornings. And honestly, like, I work out best when I have somebody to do it with, or I have somebody that keeps me accountable. Those 2 things are really important. So I go running with friends all the time. I won't go running with our producer's husband because he runs 60 miles a week, but I'll go running with local homies. And then I do Krav one-on-one. So like, I get that instructor.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, those are the ways that I do it, because I prefer working out as a social activity.
Yeah, fair enough. And I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I would like to explore a little bit about that panic attack and then working out with a trainer,
no problem.
And then going on those meds. Are you still on those meds?
Yeah, I was recently diagnosed as bipolar, so
Okay.
I'm on mood stabilizers.
Okay.
Well.
I wasn't sure if your exercise and your workouts had any impact.
No, I think I'm more fucking insane every year. So
Okay, fair enough.
No.
There's a book, I don't know if you've read it, it's called Spark.
Okay, no,
and,
I haven't.
And it's written by a psychiatrist, an MD, and he actually talked about how he would put people on meds, and then if they weren't active, he would start having them get more active. And what he found is the people who struggled with, in particular, anxiety, mostly because they didn't feel like they controlled anything, when they started doing certain activities, be it jumping rope or going for a walk or these things where they felt like they were in control, it started to influence the rest of their lives. And they wouldn't necessarily always come off of it, but he had some people who came completely off their meds. He had other people who could lower their dose by a lot because they found an activity in their life that helped regulate and give them that opportunity to feel like they were in control that would permeate into the rest of their life.
So I love my meds. I'm not getting off them.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging you to if your doctor says so.
No. I love my meds. They help me set a baseline. And the other thing I'll say is that my HRV is exceptionally low, which is not good. I've been in the 30s for as long as I've been measuring it, which is terrible. And every time I get my cortisol measured, it's very high. So I'm just predisposed to like insane amount of stress. And I didn't know what the word anxiety meant until I talked to the psychiatrist in 2014. I was like, oh, this means normal. I'm not stressed. I don't even know the word anxiety. So I think there's much more literacy around mental health these days.
Yeah.
But about a decade ago, there wasn't. I think we've actually overdone it. You read Bad Therapy, which is a book talks about how we overdiagnose children to the point where if you're not diagnosed with something, you feel left out. And I'm not kidding. It's like a thing. So, I mean, there's going to be a happy medium. But in the book, I also talk about how it's important to kind of level your biochemistry before you go on what I call the belonging quest. Because if you have some biochemical issues like I did and like many other Americans do, or you're predisposed genetically to something, you really can't get to a happy place unless you address that shit first.
Yeah. That's a very important thing because you're fighting against something much bigger that's really tough to control.
That's right.
Okay, with that, even though you said everything sucks when it comes to working out, is there any particular modality that you've experienced that sucks the least?
No, the shorter the better. I hate working out. It's uncomfortable. I have to shower afterwards. I have to change before. It's inefficient use of my time. When I run, I'm staring at the clock and the time passes like molasses. There's nothing positive about working out for me. Sorry. I'm probably on the wrong podcast.
No,
should I be on like the Doritos podcast?
No, this is actually, you know what, honestly, this makes me happy. So our event agency name is Olympian Meeting.
Yeah, I mean, dude, look at you. You are an Olympian. I'm looking at Zeus.
By definition, I am because I work there and we call ourselves Olympians.
By the way, shout out Ironman coming to Boise in the summer of 2025.
Cool. I ain't doing that. The nickname for our company is Ohm.
Okay. It's like the opposite of Olympian almost.
That's the point. And I am very much on the Olympian side, if you think about the term, right? Like high intensity and fierce competition and whatnot. And my business partner is very much on the Ohm side of things. And
Who closes more deals?
It's pretty even right now, to be honest. But the point being is that everyone falls somewhere in the middle of those things.
Well, I'm neither. Because I can't sit still to meditate. And trust me, I've tried a ton.
So that's exactly where I was going with this. Because I was going to ask, and I think this is why I'm excited about this conversation, because our whole thing is that wellness is approachable and available to anyone. And even someone like yourself who hates it and whatnot, you still make the time for it because you know it's important. So I was going to say, if you're hating the workouts that much, I was going to ask you what your experience with meditation has been like.
Yeah, I don't even enjoy a massage. So I have like a ridiculous budget for like tonal and Peloton and hydro. And I have a cold plunge. I have a sauna. It's crazy. And then I got a massage weekly. I do mobility classes. I have a running coach. Like my budget's like $2,000 a month.
For fitness. And wellness.
Yeah.
I need to sell
I don't know what I'm doing.
I need to sell a company for $100 million. That's what I need to do. So I have that.
For the record, I didn't make all of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you had a lot of people you had to pay, I'm sure.
Well, actually, proudly, our capitalization table had over 200 rows. So a lot of people, we created 3 millionaires. Everybody made money when we sold that work there.
I love that.
So back to your question.
So what I find interesting then, the juxtaposition here is, given you're such a fan of all these modalities and doing all these things, but you're doing them anyways, you mentioned you're opening wellness retreats?
So I'm opening a retreat center with wellness amenities.
Okay. All right. So what was appealing to that? Is it just the state of the market and the fact that wellness is so hot right now, or is there some type of personal tie there?
I do think that's a hydrotherapy and what do you call the extreme? What do you call it? What's the name for it?
You mean like the extreme hot, extreme colds?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a name for that. But anyway, so
awful.
I do think that it helps people perform better.
In what sense?
A sauna slows you down, like truly sauna slows me down. Cold plunge gives me energy. Together, when I do both, I feel like $1 million. And I think that having that at a retreat center as an option for those who want to do it really helps elevate the mood, energy, and presence of the people that are there. And at Assemble Hospitality Group, assemblehospitality.com.
Nice subtle plug.
Like
well
that?
done. Yeah, good job.
At Assemble Hospitality, we really believe that the biggest things happen in the smallest rooms.
Oh, shit. We're going to say that again because that's the promo reel right there.
Yeah.
Say that again.
At Assemble Hospitality, we believe that the biggest things happen in the smallest rooms. I mean, you're not going to set corporate goals at your annual town hall.
No.
You know,
that's where you present the goals.
That's right. You're not going to create a 5-year vision at your sales kickoff. You do it in a small group of people that you trust in an intimate setting that still has privacy associated with it. So everybody gets their own room.
I don't understand the retreat centers where they're like, oh, we have bunk beds in here. And you're like, what? No, I'm an adult.
Yeah. You're going to sleep on a tatami mattress. So Airbnb, for example, you're going to have the COO sleeping in a kid's room and you're going to have your meeting under a live, laugh, love neon pink sign next to like Crate and Barrel pillows. That's not a good look. It's not where awesome things get done. Our facilities are purpose-built for meetings and exclusive use for just that group. And that's how you form, norm, and transform in a very kind of intimate setting.
Are you going to have form, norm, and transform in script on the wall?
I actually missed one. It's norm, form, storm, transform. It's the 4 steps of a team building. Forming the team. Forming, creating norms.
Creating norms.
Storming together, like brainstorming, and then transforming whatever you're working on.
Got it. You should definitely put that in like script
That's a
on
great
the wall.
idea.
People love that.
It'd be kind of like 4 checklists of what to do in those areas.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so were you just finding a gap in the space? And my other question is, while you mentioned 3 things, are there other wellness modalities offered there? Or you can just bring whatever you want in?
Yeah. So we are also an integrated DMC. So we have an integrated destination management company that we don't charge for any retreat design services. We just take 20% of the booking fee of whatever the activity is. And one of the categories is wellness.
Got it.
So a private yoga class with Michaela Leto, who's here as an incredible yoga teacher, tactical firearms and self-defense programming with August Ritter from Krav Experts.
Very Idaho.
Cycling in the foothills, running and outdoor, biking, mountain biking.
I wasn't sure if you built another spin room.
That'd be awesome. Rafting. So absolutely, the way we think about team activities, there's a couple of categories. The first one is unifying activities that bring people together. There are productive, which make people produce better, like facilitation, things like that. There's wellness, which kind of help people be centered.
Okay, so I like the fact that you offer a variety of things, especially outdoors. Do you have outdoor meeting space by any chance?
We do. 3 meeting spaces, 1,300 square feet, 2 indoor, 1 outdoor.
And what's the capacity?
11 bedrooms.
Is it open yet?
Summer 2025.
Oh, okay. So we got the inside scoop. Are you going to have an opening party?
No, I'm not going to waste money on that.
Oh, all right. Well, then never mind. I was going to try to get in on it.
FAMs are a waste of money. Anti-FAM, anti-RFP spam.
I was really excited about getting an invitation to come check it out, but never mind. I was going to stay in the bunk bed room or the strawberry shortcake room.
I understand the importance of FAMs, familiarity trips. I am concerned that they sway individuals to book not the best fit locations.
Yeah, fair enough. I can see both. I know I got to go on an Alaska FAM this year.
With Visit Alaska?
Visit Anchorage.
Oh, wow. Anchorage is so amazing.
I had no idea.
Yes.
I mean, it did its job.
Yeah. Destination having a FAM is different.
Than a hotel?
Yeah. A destination having a FAM makes sense. I think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, I think so too. Because then you're also not biased to any given property.
Yeah, I mean, FAMs inherently help the big folks and don't help the little folks. A boutique hotel, they're probably going to offer a better experience, but they're not going to have the budget of a major convention hotel.
Yeah, and they're not going to have the money to put on a FAM.
Exactly.
So whereas the destination showing off the variety of things is very different.
Absolutely. Destination, ideally, they don't play favorites and they have the city's best interest.
Yeah.
The thing about destinations, though, is that they actually don't do much, unfortunately, to attract small groups because they make their money from the hotel tax. And the more hotel rooms, the more revenue they get. Partly, that's how they make their money.
Well, I think if we wanted to get into a discussion about the lack of efficacy and messaging that CVBs and DMOs have in general, that's an entirely different discussion. Actually, this just happened. So we are doing a sales kickoff for a client in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Very cool.
And I called the CVB. We booked the space. We were between Charlotte and Greensboro, and we ended up going with Greensboro. And once the hotel was booked, we were coming in to do
Why'd you choose Greensboro?
It was closer to their office. And so there was a number of people that wouldn't have to travel as far.
Got it.
And we just had access to a better property and a great rate. So I called the CVB. I said, hey, we're coming in for a planning site. Here's the things that are still missing on our checklist. So we join the sales rep and as we're going downtown, and I asked this car, how many of you are familiar with what a convention and visitors bureau or a destination marketing organization does? Nobody in the car. And I said, okay, if you had to guess, what do you think they do? They were clueless. And I looked at the girl from the CVB and I go, all of your marketing is broken because nobody knows what they do. Nobody knows their fee structure or anything.
Well, it's because their channels, right? Where they market is usually where the planners go.
Well, but it's also because they don't ever tell people what they do. They show the same video every single time with people cheersing and then a sunset and then a picture of someone like golfing and then something that's unique to the area and then a couple on a mountaintop somewhere or downtown on a rooftop. And it's like this formulaic thing. And I'm like, here's what they do. And I actually explained to the group in the car what they did. And they're like, oh my God, how did you know about this? And I said, because I'm an event professional. This is what we're supposed to know. And the sales rep goes, I'm going to tell my marketing person everything you just said because I've felt like our marketing has been broken for a while. But I've jokingly said, any CVB, all they need to do is come up on stage at a PCMA event, an MPI event. Hi, I'm with Visit City. Send us your vague ass RFP and we will source it for you actually for free because we get paid from your tax dollars that you're going to have to pay anyways.
Thanks. Send the RFPs to the CVBs.
Yeah, because they will source your hotels, your party venues, your non-traditional venues, your ground, kind of. But like one of them even did name badges. And, and Greensboro, they're like, do you need someone to run your reg? We'll send someone out for free.
Wow, that's amazing.
So like sit at your reg table. Cool. And I was like, holy shit, nobody knows about this. Yeah. What are you guys doing? So anyways, all right. Sorry, I digress. Okay. We're going to start wrapping up here, and it's the speed round, and we're going to talk trends. I think I already know the answer to what needs to stop. Sounds like big hotel fams. And then the other thing is, what do we need more of? So let's just jump into trends real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I bounced around just for you to keep you interested.
I don't. It's going to suck because I have no idea what I'm going to say.
Okay. Well, it'll be fun then. This is not scripted.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk wellness trends, though. Right?
Yeah. What are you seeing sticking around? What do you see going away?
I think, so a few things. Number one, I think events are going to increase because of hybrid and remote work. The way to bring your employees is not to pay a huge real estate fee with like a 7-year lease or 10-year lease. It's to bring people together on a quarterly basis. So I think corporate events are going to continue to climb. I think retreats are going to be a big deal because teams are remote, so they need to get together more often and essentially achieve big things in just a few days. So that's an event trend. Continued consolidation in the industry. We've seen some of that. We'll see more of that.
In the wellness space, what do you think people are going to keep gravitating towards? Or is there some new weird modality, I don't know, coffee enemas or something that you've heard of that might be catching on?
So I think NA beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, obviously. I think alcohol has no place in events. It creates an uncomfortable environment, creates an unsafe environment. It leads to potential harassment. It has no place in events and in business, in my opinion.
It's a strong opinion, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
We just got over 100 people to go halfway down the strip to join a sober, inclusive happy hour.
It sounds a little too woke for me, but cool.
Well, the idea was that if you didn't drink, there was something for you to drink.
Yeah, I mean, so there's the sober curious kind of movement, and I just think everybody's scared to like not have alcohol. And the alcohol is like an obvious way to lubricate a social situation, and I don't think that it's the only way. And quite frankly, it's a hack.
Yeah, I think it's lazy.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. All right. So that's the wellness side of things. Now the two hot take rapid fire questions. What do we need to knock off and quit doing in the events world? And what do we need to do more of? And you can answer in whatever order you like.
I think we need to start measuring event professionals by the results they deliver. And that means tying the events they produce to the business objectives that exist. Everybody talks about planning. You got to find your objectives. What's your goal? Like, okay, that's step one. But like, how do we actually make sure that the event meets the goal? Like, did the event increase revenue? Did the sales kickoff increase revenue, for example? Did the incentive trip increase? Or otherwise, there's no point in having the event.
Yeah.
So that's what I think we should do. What I think we should stop doing, I think we should stop copying and pasting programs. I mean, literally, this happened with floor plans. It's like, oh, let's just pull last year's floor plan and rename it. Like, right-click, duplicate, double-click, rename, and done. Like, that's so lame. And quite frankly, like, a lot of people try to figure out innovation and event design. Like, there's not like that much you can do. You've got to stop bringing education to the show floor, by the way. It's a total distraction, in my opinion, unless you build like actual walls. It's a total distraction.
Even with silent disco?
Silent disco is sick. I mean, the headphones thing, I did a thing where like there was interference with the headphones and there's just like too many radio waves and people like come and go more frequently because I don't know. I just feel like everybody tries. I think we need to bake in co-working spaces into events so people are not all over the place. And I think that education needs to be better vetted. There's too many clowns out there just doing sessions.
That are just sales pitches?
Yeah, it's just, or they suck. I think that event professionals, especially for conferences, try to have multi-tracks where they do everything. They need to focus on one thing and be way more, thoughtful and deliberate about what they do and produce.
I'm going to wrap all that up and put it in a box called
Please.
Jam-packed agendas need to go.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what it is. People are trying to do too much in too short of a time.
They're trying to have more planners, more suppliers, more deals. There's a lot of like poor leads at events. And there's a poor ratio of supplier to buyer. So I just think it's a conference's job or a meeting's job to do better matchmaking, provide more data about who's going, who should meet who. Otherwise, there's just so much noise. And it's the industry's job to fucking figure it out.
I totally agree with everything you said.
Thank you.
I think one of the things we're sorely missing is industry benchmarks. Because you talked about people being able to define and speak to what kind of business impact the events had, right? But yet nobody knows what a good anything is. They know what their numbers are, but like nobody knows, hey, if you got this many people to register and this many people showed up, you're in the top 10%.
Right.
Everyone knows what a good open rate is for an email.
Right.
But nobody knows what any of these standard, if you buy a booth at a show, you're like, we scanned 500 people.
Yeah.
Who fucking cares? The booth
Right.
next to you did 1,500. Oh, well, then I guess we suck.
They might have been qualified.
Maybe not. You don't know because there's no standards.
So would you be willing to, the SKO you have in Greensboro, would you be willing to tie your next year contract to whether the team hits goal or not?
I would be, yeah.
There you go.
I'm
Hire this man.
I'm not afraid of those things. The reason we started this agency is because we measured what the impact of the wellness, what we did at our event, had on survey results.
Sick.
And so when we saw our net promoter score jump by 1 point from an 8.2 to a 9.4 year over year, that's on a scale of 1 to 10, not 0 to 100.
Clearly.
That was it. I was like, there's something to this. Okay, awesome. Well, that's it. That's
Cool.
a wrap.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and when does the book come out?
It's
Is
out.
it
It was out a month ago.
Okay, The Quest, The Definitive Guide to Finding Belonging, out now. I know we didn't get to talk much about the book.
If
But
people go to belongingquest.com, they can take a free quiz to figure out what their belonging persona is, and they get free advice on what to do according to that persona. And there's way more information on that website.
so they get to understand what they can do to belong at an event?
Well, they basically figure out their belonging archetype. There are 4.
Okay.
Snow leopards, wolves, chimpanzees, and meerkats. And depending on which they are, I give advice on what they should do in their life to find more belonging. And then I've had some speaking sessions that are also available online for free where you can tie those archetypes to your events.
Okay, cool. We will put a link to that in
you.
the comments below.
Appreciate that.
And thank you for making the time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's
All right.
fun.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For help integrating these ideas, please scan the QR code. We sincerely hope you join us for our next episode of Return on Wellness.